Clean the dedicated, the detached house. Oh boy. Cards on the table, we live in an old house in Esther Diath. The eccentric actress who played the Wicked Witch in that classic movie and vanished mysteriously in the national park. We know all the rumors surrounding the place, but we also know that we picked up an absolute bargain. We don't mind if the furniture moves around a little. That's just next level feng shui. Feng shui? But the grubby exterior is really getting to us, and all the other power washers in town are too scared to set foot in our yard. If you could help us out, we'd be eternally grateful. Let's see. Soaps and detergents are almost not worth the cost. Oh, I'm aware. Especially because, like, this power washer does the trick. Might notice the odd, super weird, creepy sign on the outside of the house, but it's nothing to worry about. Sign? Oh, that thing. Well, let's start with the garage door. That seems like the best starting point in terms of getting something done quick. And then I'll think about the rest later. It looks like it's a little bit more durable than the last house in terms of grime. I don't think I'm going to be able to just use my wide nozzle. Maybe for the roof. But a lot of the other stuff. Well, there that goes. Never mind. That was a little bit more for... Oh gosh, this driveway. Okay. Yeah, this might take some doing. Yeah, this is why I want to save up for the industrial washer. Because as much as it would be nice to get the range adjustment on this, some of these are kind of tough. I was here for the first hour, and then I come back for 3 hours later, and he's still washing. Look, this game is satisfying. Like, I gotta give major props for a game that, like, knows what it's about and does it well. You generally only see that in, like, roguelikes and some really good indie darling cult hits. Like, I don't think I'd ever put this on, like, everybody must play this list, but it's in the strong recommend territory, for sure. Like, it's... one thing I want to start doing on my side channel, Wanderbot Prime, is I really want to start, like, cataloging games that I truly think people should try and, like, give another look if they haven't. And oddly enough, I think I would have to do a, like, a rep video for this, just being like, yeah, it's actually, like, really good. Not something I really expected myself saying or doing prior to today, but here we are. Why am I holding left click? Certainly looks very satisfying just by watching. It is, like, there's... I don't know. I can see why people like these sim games, but, like, from a pure mechanical and, like, game design standpoint, it's really good execution start to finish. It definitely needs more to it, but I also know it's early access, so there's that. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I really didn't even have to get the hard-to-clean spots. There we go. I like this song. Reminds me a lot of, like, a Ronald Jenkins song. Wonder if he's put out anything new. Are we not done with this yet? I guess I missed some spots. There we go. Perfect. So I think much like the last house, what I'm going to do is probably piecemeal, start low, go high. So what I should really do is not move laterally. You know, plant myself in a spot and eliminate any bit of dirt easily reachable from that location, and then move on. Otherwise, I just end up retreading a lot of ground that I didn't necessarily need to. Okay. There we go. That ding is so satisfying. Like, I don't know how much of this is intentional. That's the other thing that's getting me with this game. Like, with a lot of games, so much of it is done with, like, heart and love, and a person that, like, knows the game that they're making inside and out. You know, most roguelikes you can tell with this. Binding of Isaac, like, pretty consistently, like, you know that Ed McMillan kind of, well, maybe kind of understands the beast. Wasn't that actually supposed to be his swan song? Either way, you know, it's very clear that, like, a lot of thought and intention went into so much of it. That isn't just kind of like an offhanded, like, yeah, let's just put a dig in here. I feel like this is one of those games that they just absolutely, I'm not going to say bumbled into the finished product, but it's just kind of like, yeah, we're just going to make a power washing game. I'm sure some people will love it, right? And then it's just like one of the most satisfying games I think I have ever played. I don't think like I'll be screaming its praises for like years to come in terms of like, my gosh, this is peak game design, but like, credit where credit is due. Every choice that they made is successful. And no penalty for hitting grass. Boy, if I hit grass with a normal pressure washer, it would cause some carnage. Pressure washers are not kind to anything other than hard surfaces. There we go. Boy, you can just... It's night and day. Oh, it's... I don't know, that's... It's such a mood just looking at it and being like, man, that looked like shit before. And then here we are. But also, like, why are these houses so dirty? How did it get this bad? Honestly, it's also kind of one of those where they were talking about how, like, the house is haunted. I wish it was actually one of those where, like, instead of dirt, it was like a bunch of ectoplasm junk. Like, really lean into it. If the lore is going to be this is a haunted house, have me be cleaning a legitimately, like, haunted-looking house. Not just, like, oh, wait, there was... Huh. The symbol on the... The symbol on the garage just disappeared. Weird. So wasn't there a co-op version of Viscera Cleanup Detail that you can play? Yeah, you can just play Viscera Cleanup Detail multiplayer. Honestly, after this, it's on my list. You cleaned the symbol off. Weird. I thought I'd give it a once-over and it didn't go, but maybe it got rid of it with higher pressure. Let's see. Do I have to go to the Discord to request a game? Yeah. And I specifically have a channel called Game Suggestions, but no promises that I'll actually be able to get to it. And also, please make sure that haven't played it before. I saw somebody was suggesting Abduction earlier, and I've already played that one. I played that on launch. It's actually, I think, the most controversial series I've ever done. Mainly just because I was being sassy on the first episode towards Shell, because she was being very backseaty, and I wasn't very... I'm not going to say kind about it, but I was definitely being like, please stop. In maybe... I don't want to say, like, unkind terms, but I was being sassy back. And people were mad. People are still mad. Because I think that video ranks relatively highly, and it's like, can't exactly go back on that one. But it is what it is. I've definitely tried to tone down my language, but I'm still not 100% there yet. I get really sassy if somebody's backseating me and I don't need it, or don't want it. Okay. Give me that ding. Give me that sweet ding. Ah, shoot. I guess that railing ain't ready yet. There's got to be a dirty spot somewhere. There we go. It's straight up, like, game-assisted... Oh, I don't even know. Because it's not really an addiction, but there's that dopamine every single time you get that ding. Kind of like leveling in a MMO or getting like a new gun. Oh yeah, I just like totally missed this the first time I was coming through. But like getting a sweet new gun in Borderlands or something that looks really cool. There's just that immediate dopamine rush of like, I got new shinies. As I sat on the sofa just now, I heard a strange sigh-like sound. Spooky. But, you know, I found recently I've grown more and more, like, immune to the dopamine feeling of, like, reward systems in video games, because usually it's just, like, I'm so used to it and desensitized to it that it's impossible to care. But the little ding sound every single time, you know, I complete one of these sections, it's just like, yeah, I got it. Right there. That's it. I actually hadn't really realized that I was as desensitized to that sort of thing as I am. But this game is definitely making me realize, like, oh yeah, some of those, like, age-old game design tricks, I'm sure they still work, they don't work nearly as well as they used to. Like, what was it? I want to say, like, Diablo 2 had such a, like, impactful feeling every time you leveled up. It was just like, yeah, I've leveled up. Time to spend a skill point. It's great. You know, I had the same thing in early Pokemon. I remember playing, I think it was Sapphire, when I was a kid. We were waiting to go to a Flying Karamazov Brothers show, which is like a juggling commentary show. Comedy show, where effectively three dudes are juggling and making jokes and using props and stuff, and it's actually really funny. Or at least it can be really funny. I don't necessarily know if it is that funny nowadays, because I haven't seen them in forever. But we were there, like, really early, for whatever reason. And Pokemon Sapphire had just come out. And so I was, like, trying to play it as the sun was going down. And I had, like... Gosh. What were the starters in Sapphire? Oh, was that the one with the Infernape? Or was that the one with Torchic? I forget. I had whatever the fire starter for that one was. I think it was like that and a Lotad and whatever, and I was so excited because... Okay, it was Torchic. Pokemon Gold and Silver, I spoiled myself hard on. Like, on all of the Pokemon coming out, like... I don't know if you guys were big on reading online spoilers for Pokemon Gold and Silver before it came to the West. You know, it was still a Japanese exclusive. But I remember people being so excited for Pika-Blue and whatever the fan name for Ampharos was and a couple other ones. And, like, talking about, like, oh, what all these Pokemon are going to be, and everybody thought, like, Pikablue, which is Meryl, was going to be, like, a water evolution of Pikachu somehow, or, like, a weird water alternative. Kind of like the different evolutions are, or so on and so forth. And so, like, I'd spoiled myself in a considerable amount of the Gold and Silver Pokemon just ahead of time, being so excited for it, but I was busier and less interested in spoiling myself for Sapphire and Ruby, and so I didn't actually like Sapphire as much because 8 out of 10 too much water, but there was this real feeling of what I liked so much about the original Pokemon games, because the first time I played Pokemon, a friend had straight up just handed me his Game Boy and jokingly tried to get me to beat the Elite Four for him, thinking I couldn't do it. He had never beaten the Elite Four, and I think he had had trouble somehow beating it himself, and I beat it in the first try, more or less just by leveraging his Articuno and stomping everything with it. You know, not understanding type advantages or items or anything like that. He was really upset at me because he had never beaten the Elite Four before, and I stole it from him. Serves him right, though. He shouldn't have handed me his Game Boy. Anyway, but there was such a feeling of this, like, I'm not going to say excitement and discovery playing Pokemon, because effectively, I rushed home and said, I need to have a Game Boy now. I got a Game Boy Color, and then playing Pokemon for the first time, there was just no other game like it, and it was so cool discovering that for the first time. And, you know, I didn't have that feeling with Gold and Silver. I loved Gold and Silver, and I think they stand as my absolute favorite Pokemon games of all time, just due to the fact that you could go back from Johto to Kanto. Like, that was such a neat thing that no other Pokemon game's really done. But since it had been spoiled for me, there wasn't as much of a feeling of discovery. Whereas Sapphire and Ruby was just like, oh man, what are these new Pokemon? Everything is new and shiny, and I don't know what any of it is because I didn't look it up beforehand. And so, with that game, there was a very real feeling of, like, dopamine every single time I'd find a new Pokemon, and every single time they'd level up and learn a new move, or evolve. Especially evolving, because it's just like, you didn't know when they were going to level up. You know, nowadays, like, you kind of know exactly when your starters are going to level up. You didn't know when your starters were going to level up. You didn't know what moves they learned when. There were new types, too, so it's like, what's good against what, and so on and so forth. And so it was just so much more exciting at the time. Unfortunately, everything has turned kind of formulaic, and so I've lost a lot of that, but I can really appreciate it all the same. Was this actually, like, for people watching, was Pokemon, did any of you play Pokemon for the first time with, like, Sword and Shield? Was there that feeling of discovery, or is it a little bit more just kind of like, eh, whatever? Because I know from my perspective, I've, like, drastically lost interest in the Pokemon games over the years just because they haven't changed too much. I'm looking forward to the, I'm really looking forward to the open world one in hopes of them, you know, doing something interesting and exciting with it. Maybe, hopefully. Probably not, but maybe. Let's see. But, you know, I can never tell if my disinterest with the Pokemon games is just desensitization, or if the games really have just kind of, not slowly gone downhill, but have lost their spark a little bit. Played X and Y first and didn't like it. It was a simplistic game. Yeah, I found X and Y is consistently the worst Pokemon game. The only thing about X and Y that was really good was I loved the fact that you could dress up your Pokemon trainer in different clothes. There was something really cool about finding a new town and being like, oh man, they've got vests! Kind of in the same way that, like, Animal Crossing is cool like that, where you're just like, yeah, sweet. Today they've got the ridiculous penguin suit. Or, it's a new hat that I really like. But as far as like a Pokemon game goes, I have minimal interest in most regular Pokemon games nowadays. That was me when they brought out Sun and Moon. It spoiled like 90% of the new Pokemon in marketing, and for me, the favorite part being discovering new creature designs kind of ruined the game. But they held back a lot more in Sword and Shield, and while I was disappointed with a lot of things, discovering the new monster designs was a lot of fun. My father tried to make me lend my Game Boy and Pokemon Red to my stepsister when I was 10. Bit his hand so hard he had to go to the doctor to get it back from him. Damn! I mean, I kind of had the same experience. I had a childhood friend, and I think I was always a little too hard on her, and I never should have been. Not too hard on her. I think we were good friends. But one day I came back from soccer practice to find out that she was hanging out at my house for whatever reason, which was odd to me, mainly just because, like, why was she over? But my mother had let her in. But she was playing my Pokemon Blue, and I was upset at her because, you know, no permission was asked, and she had, you know, caught some new Pokemon, named them, moved my party around, used some of my items, and I don't think she had done more than fight a couple of trainers, but I was upset. And what I should have been was upset at my mother. And I should have been far more gracious, but it was just kind of this odd feeling of, like, get your own Pokemon, question mark? Because I think with a lot of those games... Oh yeah, I can just remove those. I think with a lot of Pokemon games, and just games in general, there's a feeling of, like, if somebody else plays this, it's kind of tainted for me. You know, if somebody else makes progress on my save file, it's a loss for me. And I think that is kind of true, just because, like, you don't really get that experience again if somebody else has done it, because then you either have to replay through the entire game to get to that point, you have to, like, reload or something like that. And no, I should have just been more gracious and not minded nearly as much. And I feel bad because I don't think I was as good of a friend as I should have been. But, I mean, I was, what, 12? If even. I was like 11 or 12. I'm not really sure if I even really understood. You know, there's the phrase sharing is caring. But they didn't, you know, whenever it was sharing is caring, it was never anything, you never shared anything important. I was talking earlier about the birthday girl and the teacher throwing away the cupcakes. Like, that's kind of the shitty side of sharing is caring. But, like, it was rarely as a child was I ever really forced to share anything with anybody other than my brother. And with my brother, it was kind of this, like, symbiotic thing. Like, we'd just pass it back and forth and not even care. Let's see. In my defense, he let her play it one day when I was at my mother's, came back, found out she saved over my file. He deserved the bite mark from the first time. Yeah, when I was in middle school, I'm not going to say I ended a friendship with a guy, but it, like, damaged my friendship with him. There was a PSP game called, was it Untold Stories? Something? Here, let me look this up. Yeah, here we go. Untold Stories, Brotherhood of the Blade. It was a PSP action RPG. And I don't actually know if it was good, but I got it as, like, one of the 2 launch games with the PSP. What's going on? That's weird. Okay, there we go. It was not letting me spray for whatever reason. Anyway, Untold Legends, Brotherhood of the Blade. It was pretty much a Diablo clone, but on the PSP, and it was actually really fun. Like, I want to go back and play it someday just because. Probably throw it on an emulator, see if I can emulate the multiplayer and play with my brother or Shell or something. Just because there was a 0% possibility that they'll ever get a proper remaster. But I loved that game growing up purely just because, like, it was fun. It was my game that I would play kind of casually when I think I was in 8th grade. And I would just play it casually when I got home after school. And one day my friend, I guess really it was my brother's friend that I was also friends with, but it was, like, closer to my brother. The guy was like, hey, that looks really fun. Can I play it? And I'm like, sure. Just, make sure you don't touch my save file because I've put a lot of hours into it and blah, blah, blah. Effectively, anybody should know this, especially with, like, games from the before times. But even nowadays, like, you do not save over another person's save file without their express permission. And on the PSP, there was infinite save slots. Like, there's no reason why this should have been an issue. But he played for about 20 minutes, and I came back in my save file that I'd put easily, like, 30, 50 X hours into. Probably not even that much, but it was, like, a decent amount. I come back and it's gone. He had saved over my entire save file, and his only, like, response was like, whoopsie! And, I was legitimately mad at him, and, I couldn't really get him to like, give a shit that he had just, like, screwed me over that bad. And it damaged our friendship that he did so. Which game? Untold Legends Brotherhood of the Blade. Like, a super unknown action RPG back in the PSP era. But for me, it was, like, one of those games that I adored up until that point. And then I was just so upset and so frustrated that this friend of mine had deleted my save file effectively. I never played it again. I never loaded it back up. I could not bring myself to want to. And it sucks because I actually, like, it had some cool ideas. Played that a lot on the toilet. Ugh. I never really played games on the toilet. I usually read the news. That way, I can kind of limit myself. I have a bad tendency of doom scrolling when it comes to reading the news. And so if I only read the news when I'm on the pot, that way I don't spend the whole damn day reading the news. Or I spend the whole damn day on the toilet, which, don't want to do. It's stinky. Did you hear that weird rumbling noise? I wonder if I can actually just get the symbol to auto-delete. Oh yeah, I can actually remove those with the green sprayer. Loved Untold, it was so good. Still have it on my PSP on my shelf. I should probably snag my PSP at some point from my parents' place. Because I think as far as handheld platforms go, the PSP is my favorite. I liked the DS, but it felt gimmicky. And a lot of the games weren't great for it. There were a number of, like, good PSP games, but mostly it was just, like, World Ends With You, and, like, a couple other games that were really standouts. Yeah, it's just Wings Out of Existence, perfect. Let's see, whereas the PSP, I felt like it was kind of underserved by the games that were on it. But the screen was so crisp and nice. The controls were solid. It pretty much could have handled any PlayStation PS1 game, just, obviously with the graphics toned down a little bit. And, like, it looked great. And I don't want to say that I'm disappointed that Sony moved away from handhelds, just because ultimately I don't really care about handhelds anymore. But I will admit I bought the Steam Deck, or pre-ordered the Steam Deck, kind of to relive the memories of having the PSP when I was younger. Let's see. First was Fire Red in a Pokemon phone emulator. Got bullied on school because Pokemon is a kid's game. That's stupid. I always found people that specifically harshed on anybody for having a quote-unquote childish hobby. Like, anybody that does that kind of bullying is usually just kind of a deprived person, and they're just taking it out on other people. I know a couple of people that are like, yeah, when are you going to stop playing video games? You know, video games are for kids. And I'm like, all right, what do you do with your time? I watch TV and sports. Like, they're no different. They always act like it's somehow this, like, more adult thing to do. Or, like, nowadays, it's like, well, what do you do instead of video games? Well, I go out drinking with friends, and it's like, that's not really better. Like, I don't know, I feel like so much, not evil of the world, comes from shitty people who don't have anything, but don't have any passions. Trying to force other people to also not have any passions like them. You know, the phrase, you know, get a real job. I've heard that one more than a dozen times every year. It's actually really dropped off lately. I think ever since streaming became like every child's dream job, I feel like the idea of telling a streamer or a YouTuber to get a real job has dropped off tremendously. I've had a lot of people say, like, you know, just quit your job if you don't like it. You know, there's been more of that sentiment lately. But I haven't seen a whole lot of people saying, like, you know, streaming is a loser's job anymore. Yeah, anyone who cares about seeming childish is themselves childish. Kind of. Or just kind of in denial. Or just broken. But I've had a number of adults over the years kind of lightly deride me for what I wanted to do. You know, when I was going to art school, they're like, what's the point of that? You'll never get a job in that. And then when I was doing YouTube, it's just kind of like, yeah, but when are you going to get a real job and, you know, join the rest of us? And then, like, afterwards, once I was, like, in this career path and, like, knew what I was doing and so on and so forth, I went back to look at these people. And the interesting thing is, like, for so many of them, they had nothing. You know, my godparents, which we don't generally talk to anymore because they're crazy anti-vaxxers, but we were at their place a couple years ago before lockdowns happened, before they went too wackadoo. But we were at my godparents' place, and my uncle specifically, you know, the conversation had shifted towards what I do for a living, because I was kind of the oddity. My whole immediate family is the oddity of my extended family, because we don't live in the country. We are, you know, we don't live out in the country. Sorry, because they're all kind of podunk Minnesotan. Not that podunk. Many of them are actually kind of well-to-do, but they all live out in the country, and they always have been. Avid hunters, duck hunters, deer hunters. Like, you go into any single one of their houses, and it is just covered in grisly trophies of dead animals. And, like, at the time, I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of neat, and now I'm just like, like, I'm not going to judge somebody if that's what they want to do, but this uncle of mine was very much just kind of, like, snorting at the idea of what I do for a living, and kind of compared me with his son, who's a banker, and talking about, like, how his son's job was, like, so much, not better, but there was just kind of this feeling of just, like, my job was somehow beneath his and his son's because reasons. And it's just like, I stopped talking to him. Like, what was even the point? Especially because all this guy did was just sit in front of the TV and be angry at sports or politics. Or, like, the neighbors doing something stupid. And then occasionally when deer season or duck season hit, he'd go hunting. And that was it. That was, like, the extent of what this guy's life was. And, you know, realizing for some of these people that they're just, like, incapable of doing anything with their life beyond, like, their one or two vices is just like, you were literally no different from me except for the fact that you were judging me for it. And so I guess in turn I started judging him, and, you know, maybe uncool of me, but, like, he started it, question mark. But, you know, anytime I run into people like that, okay, I do not like songs with talking in it. Don't do that. I have a filter that's supposed to filter them out, but not every one of these gets it. I know several people who are bankers. They all hate their job and love the money. It seems like a happy end will off, and that's respectable. Yeah. I know a number of... Oh, gosh. I know a lot of people that did the whole, like, go into a career path that they hate, just for the money. I understand it. I just also feel bad for them. Like, not everybody gets to do what they want to do in life, but you should at least somewhat enjoy your job. Otherwise, at least have, like, a relatively short work day so you can get back to doing something interesting. I don't know. Follow your dreams is kind of a weird thing to say to somebody, just because it's like, I wouldn't necessarily say, like, every dream is achievable. In fact, I would actively generally dissuade people from going all in on whatever their dreams are, unless it's either realistic, they're already well on their way, or some other things. Mainly, it's just, like, don't quit your day job until it's safe. Mainly just because I've known tons and tons of streamers that go all in on streaming and then fail, run out of money, and then just are bitter and angry about it. But it always sucks to see the reverse, where it's just like, abandon your dreams, pursue money, die sad. Work to live, live to work. That kind of thing. Like, admittedly, I live to work, but at least I'm enjoying what I'm doing. It's actually a bit of a problem sometimes, where I'm just like, oh man, I should take today off. What am I going to do? I'm going to record more. Like, whoops.